Hi, I'm Nicole Justine Reed, and today I want to talk a bit about boundaries because I know that boundaries are really important in all relationships and in interaction with life. Boundaries are what make us feel safe in our interactions with others and raise that level of respect with one another. So there are 3 steps to setting boundaries that are good and healthy for any relationship. And I want to go over what those 3 steps are today. First, let's just define what a boundary is. So a boundary is really where you get to say, here's what's okay with me and here's what's not. It's kind of like a line or a bubble drawn around you saying, if you're going to interact in my world, these are kind of the playing rules. This is what I'm okay with as my own being. And somebody who respects your boundary will say, okay, I respect that. And then you respect theirs, and then you have this beautiful mutual interaction that's healthy and safe and nourishing for both of you. If you're pushing over boundaries, right, then that's where things get really tricky. You start to feel resentful, you start to feel angry, you start to not want to interact with someone. It's really a chance, the high probability that boundaries are being stepped on whether you know it or not. So boundaries are really important in order to have really healthy, nourishing, loving interactions with each other. This is different than creating a wall, because a wall doesn't let love in and out. So a boundary lets love pour through. But it's just sort of saying, here are the kind of playing rules in rules, using that in a light term, within my world. Okay, so what are the 3 steps to setting healthy boundaries? Well, the first is that you have to know what they are. You have to identify your boundaries. This is about deeply knowing yourself, about knowing what you need in interactions with people, what you need in order to feel nourished and secure. And really, this comes from a deeper place within you around your relationship with yourself and being able to say, hey, I know what I need. Okay, so the first thing is to identify your boundaries. The second, though, is to communicate the boundary, to share that boundary with the other person. Oh, hey, maybe I'm not sure you realize this, but here's where my line is. Right? And give them an opportunity to say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cross it. I had no idea. Because they may have totally different boundaries. And, we all tend to operate from a place of thinking that everyone's just like us, right? And yes, there's a ton of commonalities, right? But the boundary levels may be malleable. It may be shifting day to day. It may be different in different situations based on our life experience, our personalities, family of origin, etc., perspectives, right? So after you've identified where your boundaries are, then you get to share them. You get to say, hey, here's how I'd like to be treated. Here's what's important for me. Here's what feels good for me. Here's what doesn't feel good for me. Heads up, right? And the people who will want to remain in healthy relationship with you will respect that. And we'll go into a little bit about boundary pushing and all that stuff in another video because that's an interesting topic. But to stay with the topic here, we have identifying the boundaries, right? That's the first one. The second is to share the boundary. And then the third is to hold the boundary. And this can be tricky because this involves repetition. It's really nice to sort of think, oh, well, I identified my boundary and I shared it with you and you're going to listen straight up, right? And where everything is wonderful, right? Not the case. Because if you're in a dynamic with somebody where they are used to, you're kind of used to stepping on each other's boundaries or you're used to interacting in a certain way, and it's all from good intention, but just maybe miscommunication, it can take some time to shift that, right? So you got to give the other person a chance and you got to give yourself a chance. And so there's about that sort of reminding, hey, remember I mentioned, or hey, heads up, or like, hey, just restating my boundary, right? So you say, you know what it is, you say what it is, and then you hold it by repeating it and repeating it, repeating it. And this is what gets really hard for some people, because this is where there can be a little bit of a pushback, right? Where it's like, oh, I got to anchor in this new dynamic. But if you are saying, here's my boundary, and then the other person steps over it, and then you go, oh, okay, whatever. Hello, it's not a boundary, right? And you have actually just let yourself be completely stepped over, right? And so this is also on you to step up within yourself, to have that courage, that strength within you to say, hold up, I respect myself enough to hold this boundary. And that's really what it comes down to. So, 3 steps. You get to practice them now. Identify your boundary, communicate your boundary, and hold your boundary. Where do you get stuck? We may get stuck along each of these different places. Maybe you don't really know what your boundaries are, but you'll know when they're stepped on. So pay attention for when the anger and the resentment kind of start to come up, because there's something there. communicating the boundary, that might be really difficult for you. So if you're having some difficulty expressing, just know that that's okay. Practice it anyway. Maybe do some throat chakra work to kind of open up the communication channel if that would work for you. And just notice if that's the block for you. Or if you're okay with the first two steps, but it's the holding of the boundary, the repetition of it, that's where you sort of get exhausted. See what's within you, because possibly you're holding the wrong boundary, or possibly it's just going to take a little bit of time to really anchor that in and keep that going for yourself. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope you have a wonderful day discovering, sharing, and holding your boundaries.